Alright, so this is a quick time lapse of me adding a collision mesh for this model called the Joshua tree, which was a request on tf2maps.net. I thought it would be interesting for people to kind of see the process of this. So I'm just going to give a little voiceover here while this is happening. So the first thing I'm doing is I pulled the model in, decompiled it, using Crowbar, pulled it into Blender here, and now I'm inspecting it, trying to figure out how I'm gonna wrap this guy up. It's a little bit out of a shape, so the first thing I do is I start with this, just rectangular prism to go around the middle, so that's a pretty obvious one. Next, it gets a little weird. I'm not sure exactly what I want to do here, so I'm gonna be experimenting a little bit with this. So again, I'm going after a pretty obvious branch here, trying to wrap it around. Usually these collision meshes, they don't need to be very precise, so it's fine to have them be very boxy. And in fact, you actually want them to be this boxy because the source engine does not do particularly well with fine mesh shapes. So here I'm just trying to get a good wrap around this weird branch thing that kind of goes in all directions. Also remembering, I'll remember this later, but at the time I did not remember that you can't have concave geometry, just like you can't have concave BSP brushes. So here I'm decimating the mesh to try to see if there's maybe some more simple geometry I can use. Maybe I can use the simplified one. So then here I'm removing all these little leaf things so that I can just get down to the branches themselves, and so I can see really where the tree itself is and where I need to actually add a collision mesh. I wouldn't want to use something this high poly for a collision mesh because that would be horribly inefficient on the engine, and people would probably complain about lag, and also the model would be enormous, and it's generally not good to have such a high poly collision mesh. Usually you just want those to be as close to a box as you can possibly make it. So this does take a while because unfortunately in Blender you do have the ability to select by grouped geometry. However, this was all just on one mesh, so those weren't actually separate pieces of geometry. So this makes it a lot simpler for me to kind of get at what I want to see here. So I'm just shrink wrapping this box around the main trunk here. And yeah, so now I add another box. Now again, in order to do actual concave geometry, you really need to have multiple meshes, all kind of not connected to each other. So this is actually not going to work as it is, as I will discover later, because this in fact is quite concave, as you can see. So got that branch. Trying to fix this trunk up a little bit, trying to keep it as close to a box as I can. So I'm adding another box for this guy here, and just trying to get around this branch. Again, these branches are so very strange. They're very twisty, very windy. Very tree-like, which is probably why this didn't have a collision mesh to begin with, because it's pretty annoying to try and deal with. So here I'm trying to get these three branches here right now, and right now I'm debating on whether or not I want to actually leave it like this, or do I want to actually do the whole thing. So I may not want to have so many individual collisions. So these three branches are the majority of the tree. So and here I'm just organizing my stuff, copying the QC file and all that over. So that I can go compile it back inside of Crowbar. Yeah, so just a little organization here. Yeah, and so here I'll do a little cheat where I'll grab a collision mesh I already have, or QC file I already have, and copy the data in there. Here I forgot to rename the collision mesh to physics, so I'm actually going to be running into a little error here, but it's fine. It's not a huge deal. This kind of stuff is relatively simple. I thought I got like the wrong mesh or something, and yeah, there we go. So I'm compiling it and showing it up in Model Viewer, and as you can see, it's a little weird. So what Source does, it tries to actually like shrink wrap the geometry if it's all one mesh. So yeah, I'm still getting that weird thing, and that's actually because I have the collision mesh all in its same like collection inside of Blender, so those actually need to be split up if I'm trying to isolate just the trunk right now to make sure I got the concave part right. So that's why you're seeing the weird shrink wrap thing happening. So here we go, another compile, fix that issue. Now here I'm of course I'm gonna run into the shrink wrap problem again. So this is where I actually need to split this guy up. So I need to split this up into just strictly convex parts. So there I go, splitting that up. And you actually need to make each one of these like have solid geometry. So the touching faces actually have to have a face there. And also here I realized that I didn't have smooth shading on, which is also something that apparently the collision mesh needs. It's a little odd, but so yeah, so that fixes that issue for us there. And then I just need to separate these up a little bit so that they get generally convex shapes, so that the engine will actually honor it. And as you can see, we're getting a lot closer to a real mesh here. So I separate that guy again, add the face there, do a recompile, and it's really nice. Crowbar, you can just compile and just refresh in your model viewer, and you'll just have you can have kind of a quick workflow with that. So it's really nice. So there you can see there's another little error. So eventually this is going to turn into probably 20 cubes of just individual geometry to try and get close to what the actual mesh is. So here I actually realized my that cube there is actually way over the thing, and so that resolves that a little bit there. So again, the collision mesh is really just an approximation of the mesh, and it's not, this is not supposed to be like accurate, or it's not supposed to really represent the model itself. It's just supposed to hide projectiles or hold projectiles, and make sure people actually bonk their head on it. So here you'll see me switching between the local and global axes a lot, because it makes it a lot easier to manipulate something that's really skewed on this axis like this. So you might see me, so there I switched to global so I can move it. Now I switch back to local so I can move the faces around. So we're just wrapping up these little branches here. So there's really all there is to it. Collision meshes are relatively simple things to do, and so yeah, I mean, there's just like a couple little gotchas is here and there. So just stuff to be aware of. Again, it doesn't like the fact that this tree is so weird. So you could wrap it up in a giant like diaper of collision mesh if you wanted, but players would certainly complain. So this model is probably not going to be super efficient on the engine, so you may want to use this tree sparingly, as I'll warn the person I'm doing this for about that. But generally, if you have 5 or 6 of these, you're probably fine. You just don't want hundreds of these, especially if it's not in playable space. Because this does have a render cost. So there you saw all the cubes there, all 24 or however many I have. We're all kind of piled up at the bottom there. And the reason for that was you need to apply all transforms to those meshes. So I just did that real quick through a recompile, and it was good. So that's really it. Not too much to this. This collision mesh is fairly simple. If you enjoy this kind of thing, let me know. Like, subscribe, all that stuff. I want to do more stuff like this in the future. So definitely let me know if you like this kind of thing. And thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next one, guys.